And it's so crazy because I would hear this before I came to med school. Keep your options open, right? Like, who are these people telling me this? They don't know me. I want to be a pediatrician. Why are they saying that I need to keep my options open? But now I am one of those people that said, "Oh my God, I wanted to do this, and I'm doing a complete different thing."
Hello, and welcome to the Med School Years podcast. I'm Dina.
And I'm Carlos, where we talk about everything you need to know about the medical school journey and residency.
We've both worked closely with applicants, advisors, and schools to understand the ins and outs of what it takes to get into med school. And now we're going beyond the admissions process.
And don't worry, this podcast isn't just about the boring stuff. We're also going to give you a behind the scenes look at the life of medical school students and residents.
We know that medical school can be overwhelming, but we're here to break it all down for you with expert tips, insider advice, and stories from people and students who've been there.
So whether you're starting the exploration process or just curious about what it takes to becoming a future physician, we got you covered.
Sit back, relax, and welcome to the Med School Years podcast. Okay. So we have the pleasure of being here with Drexel medical student Navin. Welcome.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well.
Good.
We're doing well.
Yeah.
And my relationship with Navin goes back a little bit because I had the privilege of being one of Navin's premed advisors during his time at Brown in our SMP program. And one of the first things that I remember from when you started medical school was I said, like, how is it? Like, is it what you thought it would be? And the first thing you said to me was, nobody told me that this process starts all over again. And I never forgot that you said that.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. I think a lot of times when you're a pre-med, I think the goal is to get into med school, right? I just want to get into one school. I just want to become a doctor. I just want to get into med school. But as soon as you get that acceptance, right, it doesn't even hit you then. You're just like really happy, but it's an orientation. When they sit down, they're like, these are what your next 4 years will be. Oh, also, you're going to be applying to residency and you might have another 3, 4 years. And during that time is when you realize that like the journey doesn't start when you're get into med school. It's the first day of med school. I think that's when you realize the pathway like of becoming a doctor has started. And the reason I said that to you is I thought life would be like the goals or stuff are accomplished the day you get into med school. No, I think it's a lot more than that. So
Like, I crossed the finish line
yeah,
here, but then you
yeah.
get there and you're like, oh my gosh.
No, we're just getting started. So yeah, I do remember telling you that. It's true. It's true. It does fly by though. Time does fly by.
Yes. And you're in M3 right now.
I am a third year. I've aged like 6 years. So even though 3 years have went by, it feels like 10 years have passed by, like when I look at my face. But time like I met amazing people in medical school, a lot of like-minded people. When you're in pre-med or even in undergrad, you meet people from wants to do finance or different pathways of research, right? But when you're in medical school, the first time, everyone in that room is going to be a doctor. Everyone came in to help people, hopefully. So it's nice to be surrounded by like-minded people, and that makes med school fun. It makes the time fly by. So
What was that one thing that first day or maybe the first week, first month, first couple of months that truly made you sort of that realize again, right? Like, I am in med school, or like, this is very different than what I anticipated coming to med school. I did this entire process to get here, and now I'm here and I'm like, what is going on? Why does it feel so
yeah,
different?
yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think I was privileged enough of doing that post-bac master's program at Brown. So when it comes to, I would look at it two ways, right? Did it hit me? I'm in med school when it comes to classes, not so much because at least first year, I seen a lot of the things before from Brown. But when it hit me, oh my God, I'm gonna be a doctor or this pathway just started is during the first week at Drexel, right when you start, they do the standardized patients and you're wearing this white coat, you're playing to be a doctor, right? And like, yeah, I'm a med student, let's do this. And then you're knocking on this door of this standardized patient that's in there. I don't know what I'm doing, right? I have no idea what I'm doing, but I have this white coat on. And that's when I realized, like, this isn't a pre-med Naveen anymore. This is a medical student Naveen, which was an incredible experience, but also was a very nerve-wracking experience because I realized this is 4 more years. It's just getting started. I had no idea that I didn't. I think this is a thing. When you're a pre-med, you think you know. You think you know what med school is. You think you know. I know everything to be a med student and be a doctor. But in med school, you realize you don't know anything, and I think that's a very humbling experience. So yeah, definitely when I wore that white coat and I did the standardized patient the first week.
That's awesome.
Do
How does
you
that oh,
find?
go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead, Carlos. Let's go.
No, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
go ahead, Dina.
Do you find that like did you find that most of the students like entered knowing like I'm going to be an orthopedic surgeon and I'm going to be a neurologist and I'm going to be, and then things slowly kind of changed once classes
Absolutely,
started
absolutely.
and exposure to, different material and patients and clerkships and like, do you feel like a lot of students kind of change the direction they're going in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a victim of this too, Dina. I know. Let me ask you, do
Really?
you remember when I was in
Oh.
Brown? What did I tell you I wanted to be?
I want to say cardiology.
You're right. Like it was primary care, cardiology. Like that's I was set on it. Like no one's gonna change me. If you met me, Carlos, like 5 years ago, I'm like, I'm being a pediatrician or family med. Is no one that's gonna tell me that's gonna change my idea of this. And I was so stubborn in this. I was so stubborn. First year of med school, I was stubborn in this. But I think what happens in medicine is that it's not only your passions that change, you yourself also change as a person, right? Medicine, again, what you read in the textbook is not really what it is. You can be shadowing as a pre-med, like sitting in a chair, like observing as a doctor, but when you're actually playing the role of a doctor, this is what I want to do for the 40 years of my life, it changes your perception. And so yeah, primary care, even me, like is what I came into wanting to do, but now I want to do interventional, right? Like I want to be the person that puts in the stents. I want to be the one that once gets like the acute like response. I don't want the longitudinal waiting to see what's happening to the patient. I want to see the patient get better right in front of me. That's not just me. A lot of my friends wanting to do ortho, wanting to do like cardiology, I would say 90% are not doing what they came in saying that they want to do. And it's so crazy because I would hear this before I came to med school, keep your options open, right? Like, who are these people telling me this? They don't know me. I want to be a pediatrician. Why are they saying that I need to keep my options open? But now I am one of those people that said, "Oh my god, I wanted to do this, and I'm doing a complete different thing." So
Can you remember when that change happened, or what was it a single event in your sort of 3 years in med school that you were like, now I'm completely not only confused because I thought I wanted to do this, I want to do something different, but also have made that not final decision, but at least solidified this is the direction that I'm going.
yeah, yeah. I think the answer to that is very multifaceted because you have to look at medicine as in my career as a doctor, but also how does it impact my family? How old is am I going to be in this journey? What is the repercussions and the benefits of doing this journey, right? So again, as a pre-med, your mind is so narrow. Like getting into med school, I'm going to be a doctor. But then you look at these tangibles. Like I'm 28 years old. My parents are in their 60s, right? Medicine already takes so much time away from you that the always the term, it's just one more year of fellowship, it's just one more year of residency. So maybe yeah, for me when I'm 34, one more year to 35 doesn't matter. But then when my parents are 65, that one more year is 66, and that does matter. So you start thinking about these things. I was thinking about like outside of medicine how life would be. And so I don't think it's a 1 point thing. I think it's third year medical school rotations really do expose you when you kind of act to be in this role of a doctor in this field of medicine. This bread and butter cases, and I do this for the next 40 years of my life. And so the answer to that is I think it's not a singular thing. It's thinking about family. It's thinking about what is medicine taking away from you? What is it giving you? And do I enjoy doing this every single day? Can the worst day of my life in this specialty, will I still be happy in it? Um, I think so. I wouldn't, for me at least, it's not a singular thing. It's like you're thinking a lot more about medicine and outside of medicine as well.
It's a good way of thinking about it.
Thank you for sharing that because I think when I've been on both sides, right? The admission side, on the student affairs side. And I think sometimes students struggle to understand that selection of specialty or residency choice, it's not so much given by statistics and metrics. I think there is a portion of that that is true, but it's driven a lot by personal choices, right? And like you, like a thought process of like, where am I going to be in 5 to 7 years? Where do I want to be? Is this something that I want to do? Do I want to spend my nights and weekends doing this for those that want to go, emergency medicine, or do I want to only work these days? So I think it's a lot of that sort of explain kind of clarifies itself for a lot of students in med school. And like you, a lot of pre-meds and even first years that come in are like, no, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it. And there's some that continue on that path, right? But I think it changes a lot over the course of the 4 years or 3 years to really solidify that final decision.
I agree with you. And the point I want to make out is the 3 years you said. When you come into med school, you think you have 4 years to decide what you want to do, but you really don't. Like, first 2 years fly by. No one told me this. Like, first 2 years fly by, and then boom, I'm taking step one. And step one was a blur. Those 3 months, I swear I don't remember what happened. All I did was study, and I aged like 5 years, and then I took step, and the next day I'm in rotations. And that's when it really matters. The first 2 years really do, like, first year, you're adjusting to med school. Second year, okay, like I'm thinking about step. Third year, I need to decide what specialty I want to do. And you're applying the end of third year. So you don't have that much time to figure out what you want to do. You have to be proactive about it. So yeah, it's not a 4 year thing, it's a 3 year thing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, now the end of third year having to apply, for residency, and really it's like applying for med school all over again, right? In terms of making sure you have everything that you need to demonstrate your commitment to medicine and what you've done over the past few years. How hard was it and I know you, and you're very involved. You become very involved. You care about the communities that you become a part of. You want to be an advocate for classmates and friends, and just it's like a family for you whenever you are in an academic structure, which I think is why the program that we were in at Brown was so successful for you. You made it so personalized, which was fantastic. So how did you find the time and the avenues to do that at Drexel, whether it was, student government or AdCom or all of the different organizations that you became a part of?
Yeah, again, that's a great question. Medicine does take a lot away from you when it comes to studying. Like your day to day is when I go to class, and there'll be like 8 hours of on-site stuff you're doing. So sometimes I come home at 2 p.m., sometimes I go home at 3 p.m., sometimes I don't have anything in person. And even when I don't have anything in person, you're constantly studying, you're doing Anki, you're taking notes. So getting involved a lot of times can be in the back burner. But however, when one of the biggest advice I've gotten was pick a specialty that was the most competitive in your head. So, for example, derm or ortho or radiology or these things, and plan yourself to prepare for these really difficult specialties, but then start crossing out the things that you don't like. So, for example, you end up in pediatrics, that's what you want to do, but you have structured your resume, structured volunteering SGA to the point it's so competitive, but even though you don't want to do radiology, your application is still very good for pediatrics. And so the way I went about it was pick a specialty. Maybe I don't know what I want to do yet. I picked, for example, cardiology when I first came in. Was I 100% sure? I thought I was, right? But it changed. But I started building my career towards cardiology. So I was the secretary for SGA because I love talking to people. So communication was a big thing that I enjoyed doing, bringing people together. Then like you said, I do want to give back to the community. So I was part of this thing called like a grassroots group, going back to senior living, assisted living, and giving like holiday packages. So these little things that your passion aligns with, but it's still kind of like a broad enough title that you can still apply to every specialty is the way I kind of went about it. Adcoms, the reason I did that, again, I love giving people chances. Someone took a chance on me, right? Dina Brown took a chance on me. You helped me. Advising helped me, right? And just like I was on the other side. A year later does not make me that much more wiser and older, right? Just because I'm an M1 does not mean I know that much more than the pre-meds are applying now. No, we're actually the same people. Someone just took a chance on me. And so that's why I chose AdComs, because just because I'm an M1, I know how it is to apply just 6 months before. And I want to hear their stories, and maybe I can help someone get into medical school. So I kind of kept my stuff I volunteered or took participation as broad as I can. First, that was my first thing, but it still aligns with my passion of helping people, talking to people, and bringing people together. And I was fortunate enough that Drexel had enough organizations for me to be part to do that. So I guess my only thing I would say is don't pick too much of a niche. Pick like a really hard specialty you want to do, and keep your activities very broad. And when you do the broad activities, make sure it aligns with something you're passionate about, so you enjoy doing it.
That's good advice.
Yeah, it is good advice because again, right? I think everybody comes into medicine with this expectation. I just need to do these things, and I'm guaranteed a spot, or I'm going to get in. I'm going to get into a super competitive specialty. Um, but the path is different, right? The same way the path into medical school is different for everybody. It's the same for residency. I want to go back a little bit to sort of transitioning from classroom to clinical space. You talked about your first interaction with standardized patients. What was your first interaction with actual patients in your clerkships? Like, what was that
Yeah,
for you?
yeah. Third year has been an emotional roller coaster. When you're a third year med student, once again, you're in the bottom of this pool of a medical student, and you have residents and you have attendings, right? So that's really, again, big reality check. And
Hierarchy.
hierarchy's back, right? And so it's like the senior year in college again. You thought you know everything, and now you go to grad school and med school, you're back again in the bottom of the dating pool. And so third year is humbling in the way is I took step. I still don't know anything about medicine. It's just still so much more to learn. And you come into your first year of rotations and they ask you a question. You have all this textbook knowledge that you memorized, you took this exam, but there is a gap of application of clinical experiences. So you're starting back and becoming a learner again. Um, and a lot of times that means you're standing in the back and shadowing, right? You're not really interacting with the patients. So you thought that glorified third year med students too, but it really isn't. So for me, for example, I was actually pretty discouraged coming into third year, and I was like, man, this is what my life is gonna be. Like I'm not that involved, and people, for example, internal medicine, they're not talking to patients that much. Is it because I'm not involved as a third year medical student? Is that why I'm feeling this way? So it's been a roller coaster. Sometimes as a med student, you feel like you're not doing anything, but then there's one day I went to see a patient. I just sat down and talked with her. As a med student, you're assigned with two patients, right? And you basically talk to them, present them to the attending, and get feedback. And there's one patient I sat down, maybe spent 20 minutes, 30 minutes talking to her, following her the whole week. And she asked me, do you have like a business card? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, like I'm just a medical student. She was like, I hope whatever you do a profession that you could talk to people, because you're the only person that's came down and asked me about my life, asked me like how I'm doing. And a lot of times when you see a patient, and I don't know if I blame, it's just a very, even as an attending, your schedule is so difficult to manage 20 patients. But as a med student, you have the privilege to spend your day to talk to a patient. And that's when I realized you can make an impact as a medical student. Sit down and talk with those two patients. And for them, that just made their day. And probably some of their scariest days of their lives. And that kind of brought me back to why I did medicine. It kind of reminded me when I was having these lows in third years that this is what medicine is, and that's what I need to focus on, those type of days, and work towards those.
Aw,
And
that's
thank
so
you for that.
sweet.
That's
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
it
yeah.
is. It is. Definitely. Thank you for that. Yeah, you remember these two students, right? I mean, these two patients, sorry. These two patients. Are these the two patient sort of interactions that you had that maybe solidified your step towards what you're choosing to do in residency, or was it another interaction? Um, what was that? And I think we talk about it a lot in sort of the admission side, right? What were those patient interactions or those clinical interactions where you're like, yes, I want to do medicine, I want to be a doctor. For you as a third year medical student, what have been those interactions to say, like, this is what I want to do? This is what has really solidified that I want to go into this specialty.
Or
Yeah,
even research, like, was it research or was it like a
Yeah.
summer program, or you know what I mean? Because I think
yeah,
I remember you were doing some research in the summer, like,
I was.
yeah.
Yeah, so good to talking about research later and first the two patients. So I think a lot of medicine these third years is to one of the biggest teaching points is to constantly remind yourself why you came into to begin with. And so you, when you're interviewing to medical school, you say, I want to be a good doctor to help people. Yes, I mean, that's a really great thing that I said, right? But did I forget that the first year of medical school, as soon as I got in? Did I forget that's why I came in for medicine when I was a second year medical student? So I think the biggest fight when you're a medical student is remembering why you're here. Because when you're studying 12 hours every day, when you're taking these exams back to back, it gets so redundant, it becomes like a cog in a machine that you actually forget why you're doing this. And so that one patient experience I was talking about before, where she was like, you made my day, that was a point that reminded me when I was doing mock interviews with Dina why I wanted to do medicine. That patient reminded me this is why. This is why I said that. And maybe these 2.5 years, I might have forgotten that, right? You're just studying exam scores, getting into residency, this. It's the next chapter in your day. That patient interaction froze time for a second, made me take a step back, and I was like, wait, this is what I was practicing and saying all these things to get into medical school, and it still stays true. Thank you for reminding me that. And I think hopefully every med student gets that time in their 4 years of med school to get that realization back. Why did I do this? Did I realign myself to my goals, or did I stray too far away from it? And for me, I think it just brought me back to who I am. This is why I'm doing this, and this is what I'm going to pursue and not forget it this time. So, talking about research and why the specialty I chose now, when you go through pediatrics, when you go through family medicine, there's a lot of patient interactions. But for me, I want to make sure the patient coming in is leaving better than when they came in. So, for example, family medicine, internal medicine is a lot about management of care. So, patient goes into surgery, and now you're stabilizing them, and then you discharge them once their like stabilization is done, but doesn't mean their underlying condition is actually cured or fixed. And a lot of people like the stabilization and the longitudinal care gives them joy, and I thought that's what actually gave me joy too, but it wasn't. And that's kind of what I realized in third year is I want to see that this patient's gotten better within the 2 3 days they're with me. I want to see that this patient that was sick that came in, when they're leaving after my care, that they are doing better. And surgery, interventional, these things, like, for example, patient comes in with a heart attack, you give them that stent, you have definitively like increased their lifespan. They are leaving as a better person, like healthier version of themselves. So I kind of needed the acuteness. And another connotation is that surgeons have this bad rep for it sometimes, is that they don't talk to patients that much. I was privileged enough to see surgeons, for example, even if it's for only for 15 minutes, sit down and tell the patient, you're going to be okay. You're going to see your children when you wake up from anesthesia. You're going to come back. You're going to be okay. And for me, those 15 minutes, even only it's only 15 minutes, was more substantial than seeing a patient for 5 minutes 10 times a day, just checking their heartbeat. And so yeah, maybe you get more exposure in those aspects, but those 15 minutes of sitting down and talking to them, I think makes a much more of an impact. So that's why I'm choosing the profession I'm doing. Research, biggest advice I would say, again, go as broad as you can in the beginning. So I did derm research that summer because I was the only person that kind of got back to me at UPenn. And she took a chance on me. I was in the lab for all summer, got like 2 publications. I picked it broad enough. It was autoimmune diseases that now it is applicable to every kind of facet of medicine.
Smart.
So again, do not go into a niche coming into medicine. You want to do ortho, that's great, but pick a research, pick like activities that are broad enough, and then start narrowing it as a third year.
Where does the help come into play for helping you figure that out in terms of mentorship, right? Like, you came from, several, I think, two master's programs that
Yeah.
you did where you had a lot of mentorship. Um, and then you get to med school, and is it difficult to find mentors, whether it's upper class, well, M2s, M3s, M4s, or professors or faculty or advisors? Are you paired with someone? Like, how hard is it to find that mentorship to help guide you or give you advice on experiences like the broad research or something like that?
Yeah, so Drexel's a very massive class. I think it's about 300 people, and they do have amazing
Wow.
faculty and amazing professors that want to help. And what you find ubiquitous is no matter where you go, even if it's Brown Med or Temple University or UPenn, there's going to be a lot of students, and the faculty number is limited, regardless of how big your med school is. Because we have 300 students, but we still have a lot more faculty, so kind of the ratio kind of balances out. And all these faculty want you to succeed. The better you do, the better the med school does. So your winning is actually them winning as well. But it's also about how much you reach out for help. As Dino know, I am very
Oh,
good at asking for help.
we've
So
talked about this a lot because there are a lot of students who don't ask for help.
yeah, and I think the biggest like thing I'll ask for people like to do or suggest is ask for help, and get information. Take as much information you have, and it doesn't need to be from people just in medical. So it can be your parents, it can be like your grandparents, it can be anyone because every life experience is different. But you're as a med student, take the information and then consolidate it, and then pick what's best for you. So even for the advisors and mentors in medical school, they're there to help you. They're incredible people to help you. But if you don't reach out and email them for help, they're not going to know that you need help. And why this translates really big into third year is getting into residency is a lot about connections and it's a lot about reaching out to people. So if you start making this practice of reaching out to mentors your first year, what I'm doing this year is like cold emailing program directors, and you'll be surprised how many people in really powerful positions in these medical schools or residency are just so happy to help medical students. And maybe that's just because people don't reach out and making just exposing yourself and showing that you want to learn and you're looking for guidance, people love doing that. So just I think the biggest thing is I just reached out. I just asked people for help, and having the humility to ask and know that you don't know anything is like the first step. So
Yeah,
Well
thank you
said.
yeah, thank you for saying that. And it goes back a little bit. I think when you were talking about patient, right? You remember why you wanted to go into medicine. It's a full circle. And even now, when I'm advising students, I tell students medical schools are not just looking for like this, 528 MCAT, this 4.0 GPA. There's a lot that goes into it. And you mentioned a little bit about this emotional state that you were in sort of in your third year.
mhm.
How did you step away to really manage your wellness? I think that's something that some
Oh,
students
that's a
realize, right?
great point.
They
That's a great
expect that
point.
you're going to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
dedicated 100% of the time and you don't have this time to step away. But in order for you to go into the next step of your training, you have to be sort of mentally and emotionally prepared for it. So how did you sort of balance that out?
Yeah, as Dean has met my parents, everyone, their life circumstances and their background coming to medicine, first of all, is different. And some people are more privileged to have a bigger social support than the others. And I, for example, so maybe my situation might not be like applicable to everyone, but I'm privileged to choose a medical school, come to a medical school that's 40 minutes away from my parents. Um, and I made it a priority. The medicine is important, but it's not more important than family. And I think a lot of times you can get into this rabbit hole that medicine is my life. It is my live, my breathing, everything. And it is important. Patients' lives are in your hand and you need to be passionate about it. However, for you to do actually good work, you need to be well yourself. Um, Finding wellness in medical school is a tough challenge. It is a tough challenge, especially from step one and forward, studying for that and going into third year. For me, it's been difficult. You're in the hospital for 12, 10 hours. You need to come home and study. And it's a repetitive thing where everyone's busy, right? If you're going through a bad day, it's tough for you to call someone and ask that because they're also going through a really rough day. Um, but that's when you have to believe in the fact that you do people do want to be there for you and you need to reach out. So for example, Drexel has a very good free health free like counseling, right? Anyone can go in. We have psychiatrists, we have counselors just for medical students. So they're very familiar with um what is the difficulty to be a med student? And we, for example, get 12 free sessions per year, right? So that's one a month. And these are very good
God.
licensed therapists. Also, my student insurance is very good, so it is applicable to like if I want to do outside help as well. And I don't know if you guys have seen Ted Lasso, the TV show. And Ted
Of
Lasso,
course.
he goes like when he goes first get a therapist, like, why am I paying money to have friends? I have friends. And I used to be the same person. I was like, why do I need to get counseling or therapy if I have friends to talk to, right? But that isn't the way I realize to look at it is to see that these people are there to help. They give you an unbiased outside perspective to manage your time, for example. To manage when you're having a tough day, what do you do to take a step back? Don't be scared to take a day off from medical school. If you're having a bad day, tell your or your program clerkship that I can't come in today. And these people want you to do well. Sometimes you get into this mentality, I can't take this day off. I'll look bad. No, they want you to prioritize yourself. You need to step out of that thinking and make sure you take care of yourself first. And so I've been pretty good at if I'm having a rough day, I need to take a study, I take a day off. And Drexel does a great job of managing that. You want a day off? Go ahead. And because again, it goes back to the advising thing. You have to advocate for yourself. You need to ask for help for yourself. Reach out to your friends. Reach out to family members. Anyone that you can fall for support system.
Thank you for explaining that. And again, right, I think a lot of students go with this idea into medicine that you have to just give it all 100% and you don't have these breaks, only designated breaks, and they forget that we're only human, right? They're only human and they
Yeah.
need to take those breaks to recover, reset, recenter, to be able to be better for their patients. And just to be able to complete the program and enter the next stage of their training. So
Yeah.
good job. Good for you for asking for help. Not everybody just
Yeah.
gives.
Yeah.
Proud of you. Not everyone would do
Yeah,
that.
I think Ted Lasso for that for sure. But
What does it scare you? Well, let me ask the question. What scares you most about residency? And does the thinking about maybe not having as much wellness in your life scare you at all?
yeah, absolutely. I'm privileged again to have really friends that give a lot of unconditional love. My parents right here, so I think the worry or the concern should be for people that are really far from family, that are really like
Mm.
disconnected, and that if they're from California, a lot of times I see my friends from California really struggling in the East Coast because when they're having a bad day, I can come back home, but where can they go, right? So that is something that you have to think about doing residency because it's only going to get harder. And as a third year, I do get burnt out, right? As a second year, I got burnt out. And I never thought burnt out was a word. Like, I didn't know that applying as a pre-med. But when you're in a med school, it does become a reality. You get tired, you get exhausted. So when it comes to residency, the biggest thing I'm worried about, yeah, wellness is definitely a thing. How am I going to manage time? But much more bigger than that is um, you forget how much time has passed in medicine, right? I'm 28. I started when I was 25. I'm going to graduate when I'm 29, about to turn 30, right? And then if I do interventional, that's 5 years of radiology, 1 year of interventional. Okay, now I'm 36. Okay, I started when I was 26. Okay, my dad was 50, now he'll be 60. My mom was 47, she'll be 57. For you, it'll be like this because we're young, right? But then when you're actually done and you're stepping out of this, you realize so much time has passed. Everyone's older than you. Life has moved on, but your bubble has only been medicine, and you might not see that while you're in this bubble. So that's my biggest worry is medicine's already taken so much time away from me, and I'm not even nowhere close to being done. So residency is another step that's going to start another journey. Um, how much time is that going to take away from people I care about, people getting older? So I think that's my biggest fear.
Yeah, I want to mention for those that are listening to this podcast that you're going into interventional radiology. So if they want to Google it and look it up, so they could see how you figured out your math of where you're at, where you're going, your age and all stuff. Because I think a lot of we use abbreviations, right? Like you and I, and Dina understand it, but for those
Yeah.
that don't, especially pre-meds, are like, what is he talking about? Navin is trying to go into interventional radiology, and if you look it up, you'll see the sort of the timeline, the time frame that it's going to take for him just from beginning to end. In addition to that, a couple of years of fellowship. I wanted to ask a question now that we're sort of talking about residency, and Dina brought this up. What are you scared of? But have you started your application or prepping your application for
Yeah.
residency at this point? Or are you sort of like, no, I'm going to wait till the beginning of next year and then really kick it into high year?
I wish I can wait for the beginning of next year. I wish I can wait another 3 years before I think of this. But you kind of start soon as you start med school, right? And that's what's so interesting about it is like end of first year, they gave us a link to this portfolio to upload all our activities, basically. And so every year they open this application up. And what they're trying to do is basically kind of make a fake application for ERAS. So when ERAS does open, ERAS is the application for residency. When that does open, um, you kind of just can copy and paste it. So the thought process has kind of been slowly implemented and seeded in your brain since you come into medical school. So okay, am I starting now? I think I'm a lot more of a lot more in it to figure out what I need to do because the biggest thing actually 2 weeks ago we had a Zoom meeting to apply for away rotations. So VSLO, which I just learned, is a thing that you need to go into to apply for these away rotations with specialties that you like. Okay, so when does that? That is in January and February. When is January and February? In 2 months. And so like wait, so I need to figure out what I might like in 2, 3 months to start applying for away places that I want to work in for 3, 4 years to see like that's insane. So basically I only have 3, 4 months. So I've already been thinking about it. We had kind of got the token for the ERAS application for residency. And we have like again that Drexel portfolio to start building it up. But I think this is kind of the last year we have, right? I don't even have a full year now. I have 10 months to go to 11 months when I apply. I don't know when the fourth year is applied, but maybe you guys know better when the fourth year is
Yeah.
applied. But
So applications technically are open springish. You should have everything, and then by September you can hit submit to all the programs. So your year is
yeah,
really condensed by the time you transition over. Um,
that's
how,
wild. So,
how many you mentioned aways? How many aways are you planning to do for your
uh,
sort of process?
yeah, I think I'm gonna do one sub. So I'm gonna dual apply. I'm gonna apply for like radiology to the interventional track, but I'm gonna have a backup for internal medicine and then do the cardiology track. And the reason I think that is the best thing you can do is for me is being a doctor itself is a privilege, and then picking the next specialty is just a kind of a cherry on the top. And interventional or cardiology, I think I'll be happy. But I think my intentions kind of line towards interventional. So, um, sorry, you got to tell me your question one more time because I'm going to go completely off track right now.
How many aways are you planning? So now
So
you're
yeah,
dual
so now
applying.
dual applying. So I'm going to do my sub-I. Sub-I is kind of like the acting to be an intern for
Mhm.
whoever is listening. And so I'll be doing that in internal medicine. And then I'll have 3 aways. And I want aways, I heard, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is you have a better chance of getting an interview if you do an away here. And so one of the people I actually reached out to, Dina, was at Brown. It was a program director at Brown who said, why don't we do a phone call? And if you come for an away here, we can work on a research project together. And so again, it's reaching out to these people. So I think I'm gonna do one at Brown.
Then you have a
Hopefully,
history there, which is great.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's probably all gonna be the rest is gonna be all in Philly location if I can be close to family. So Jefferson, Temple, Drexel, for example, it does not have home residency programs, and so I think for us, so we have to look outside of Drexel. But again, so that'll be Temple, Jefferson, Penn, universities around you. So I'll do three in radiology and do my sub-I in internal medicine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, away rotations are more like audition, what we call in medical education audition rotation. So you're more likely they've seen you once, they'll invite you for the interview. That's part of the process versus
yeah,
doing it now, doing the audition now, right? They get to see you a little bit ahead of everybody else. But it's also strategy, right? You're dual applying, you want to stay in the area. I've heard students apply away rotations across the country because they've lived in a certain area their whole life and now they want to go somewhere else. Uh, but based on your story, I could hear that you're very tied to sort of the Northeast, the Philly area, especially because of your family. Um, so it's again, right? Everybody's journey is different. and you just have to figure out what your journey is. How many, I know you talked about research, you just did one research, and do you feel that that has now sort of added value to your application? I know there's been conversations a lot on the residency space, right? With STEP going past fail, everybody's now doing research, taking an extra year to do research. Did you feel like you needed an extra year to do additional research, or did you feel like this is enough for right now?
Yeah, I will get back to you once I hear back if I match or not. But I think the biggest thing I will say is it depends on the specialty you're doing. And there's a lot of published data again for each specialty. What is the hardest? What scores are the highest? For example, the road specialties, what they say, derm, ophthalmology, anesthesiology, and radiology. But or yeah, radiology, ophthalmology, anesthesiology, and dermatology. But again, plastics, for example, orthopedics or ENT is so competitive that you do want to take a research year. For me, was it enough the summer I took? For the specialty I'm doing, yes, I do think it is, but it is not applicable for every specialty. And that's very specialty based. And it goes back to what I said earlier, pick the most toughest specialty, and then you do the most in the beginning, because the most time you're going to have is your first and second year. And that's, I wish someone told me that. Because you think again, third year you have a lot of time. You have 3 years, 4 years of medical school. No, again, you have 3 years of medical school to get your residency together, and the third year is the toughest. So you kind of want to do all your activities in your first and second year. Second year is tougher than first year. So you now, like, I wish someone told me to do everything first year and build it on, right? Because you're like coming in, oh, I can do it my second year med school. I can do my third year med school and figure it out. But time is only getting shorter and shorter. So do I wish I did more research? Yes. More is never going to hurt. But it goes back to your mental health thing. Medicine, working on school is important. And it doesn't have to be just research. You can be very passionate about volunteering. The outreach programs on Drexel. I know friends who've done zero research and they're just so eye help in their outreach projects, and that looks amazing. It's all about the story you want to build. And I think the story I want to build is research is important, but there's also life outside of medicine that's more than research as well. It really depends on the person.
It's full circle, Dina. Do you
It
realize that it's full
is.
circle?
It,
Like,
it is. I was just gonna ask, like, if you could, go back in time, to pre-med Naveen, um, like imagine we were back in my office, like at Brown,
Yeah.
and thinking, working on your applications. What is one piece of advice like you wish you could give pre-med Naveen?
Um, Go easy on yourself. The journey
Oh,
is
give
long.
yourself some grace.
Go easy on yourself. The journey is
I love
long,
it.
and more importantly, be proud of everything you accomplished, right? And I think when you're in medicine, you're gonna see people younger than you. You're gonna see people older than you. You're gonna see people that are really good at cardiology, but maybe you're not as good, right? You can see people that are really good at the renal and all these other subjects, and maybe you're not that good. But yeah, you did, regardless of your circumstances and your background, whoever, wherever you came from, you got into medical school, right? You're gonna be a doctor, and you made it so far in this journey, paying this much money and taking this much time away from family. Take a step back, take a deep breath, and be proud of yourself. And a lot of med students, including me, a lot of my classmates, I don't think we give ourselves enough credit
I
for making
agree.
it this far. And that's a fine thing. That it doesn't mean that you're, it has a sense of humility as well to know that medical school is this hard. But it's just like, if you're not proud of everything you accomplish now, I don't know if you ever will be proud in the future. So take a step back and just breathe. You're going to be okay. And even as a pre-med Naveen, I wish I can tell him, like, getting into Brown, doing this master's program, like taking the MCAT itself is an accomplishment, right? And um,
Mhm.
so you don't realize
Good.
that. You don't get into med school, you're like, oh my God, my life is in shambles. But it really isn't. You cannot let it define you. And me, for example, I was on the older side of it, applying, and you hear my
You're
friends getting it
non-trad.
non-traditional,
Yep.
and you hear friends I went to high school with getting into med school or higher in my career, and you're like, oh, I'm not there, we're there yet, but you're in your own journey and you need to be proud of yourself for making it this far. So I think go easy on yourself is what I'll say.
I think that that's great advice. It's
Yeah.
great advice. And like there was another classmate of yours who said to me, at the day of his white coat ceremony at another med school, he said, how was it? And he said, and he was also non-trad. And he said, you can tell the students who maybe had to struggle and work a little harder to get here, they have a little bit more skip in their step.
Yeah, yeah. We all come from different backgrounds, and I think the most important thing is not to compare and be proud of your journey and your background that you came from.
Right. Like
And so I agree.
have that skip in your step.
Have this kid and be proud of
Right.
that
Be
skill
proud
set.
of yourself.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I agree with you, Dina. So
Aww.
It's that story. It's that story. It's just a story, right? And I think we tell pre-meds when applying into med school, it's like you're telling your story, and I think your story is going to continue right now going into residency. I'm excited for what the future holds for you. I think you
Me
know what
too.
you want, you know what you're getting.
yeah.
Who knows? You'll be a doctor one day, and we'll all cross paths one day and be like,
Hope so. I hope that's tomorrow because this is a long journey. But yeah, yeah, time is flying though, and I think no matter how long medicine is, I think find yourself with people you love, you care about, and that's going to do this journey with you, and it's not going to feel like a long journey. I've been privileged with amazing friends, and so when you're doing through these tough times together, you're not going to sometimes even realize it's tough. And so lean on people, find people you love. And also obviously never forget to give love. So because once you're giving it, you're gonna get it back. So
yeah. As final thing, because I didn't even ask you as we wrap up our conversation. What's your schedule look like? What clerkship are you in right now, and what does the week look like for you?
yeah, so I just finished OB/GYN. And it kind of OB/GYN kind of solidified I wanted to do interventional because being in the OR was amazing. Being seeing the acuteness, someone comes in with an issue, you take them to surgery and they come back and they're like, you're good. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna be fine. And so OB/GYN actually solidified that I want to do acute care. I want to maybe be in the OR. So I finished OB/GYN on Friday, and then Monday, tomorrow, I'm starting family medicine. So I have 2 more rotations left, and that's it. Third year's done. So isn't that's crazy?
That
That's
is so
crazy.
crazy.
That's crazy. So
Good for
I'm like,
you.
what is happening? So um,
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm so happy for you. And we really appreciate you taking the time to share your journey and your story. I think that, it's always an advantage to hear what med school is like, from students for aspiring students. And, you're definitely a success story. And we really appreciate you sharing
I appreciate
your
you guys, and
medical school journey with us.
absolutely, I appreciate you guys, but I also wouldn't be here without the people helping me like you, Dina. So I
Exactly.
think as much as I study and much as I tried, like the people that believe in you, and you just need one person. You just need one person to be like,
That's all you
you
need
just
is
need
one
one person to
person
be
to
like, you
believe
got
in you.
this. And I was
Yeah.
again very privileged to have a whole community to help me get to this part. And I think I remember doing mock interviews with you, and I always said like getting into med school is never the goal. It's when you're 80 years old and you look back and you're like, this is a good life I lived. And if you have a goal much, much, much bigger than medicine, you're not going to feel the journey as of a trouble, right? But when the goal is much closer, you might feel the journey as being a lot more strenuous. But if it's much, much bigger than medicine, what do I want to do with medicine? What is outside of medicine that's going to help me
The
become
impact.
the impact? Then you're just going to see this as one step. So that's been helping me. So, and you helped me a lot to get to that.
Privileged to have been along for the ride. That's for sure.
It's my privilege, not your. It's literally my privilege. So
That's why we do what we do. It's
yeah,
it's just amazing just to help students get there. So
yeah.
congratulations.
It is a pleasure meeting you both and talking to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good luck.
Thank
Keep
you.
us posted. We can't wait to see you on the other side. Hopefully, in a short 12 months, you'll be a doctor, and then we'll see where your journey takes you.
Thank you guys. Thank you. It was a pleasure.